Welcome to the case study companion video for our ITIL case study, Service Management at CERN. It is my pleasure to have two colleagues of CERN here today with me, Gyorgy and Frederic. Thank you for taking us through this very interesting case study today. Perhaps as a start, if you would like to introduce CERN as an organization.
Yes, so CERN is a research center in particle physics located close to Geneva in Switzerland. It was founded in 1954 by 12 European countries. Their vision at that time was to develop in Europe a center of excellence in fundamental research. And actually, our goal is to understand the universe, try to understand the universe, typically to understand what it is made of and how it works. So today, CERN has 23 member states. All European countries, but in fact, it is more than 600 physics institutes in the world which are contributing to the CERN experiments. And we have up to 100 different nationalities at CERN. So as such, CERN is really an amazing example of international collaborations. So today at CERN, we have about 12,000 people working on CERN premises. Sometimes physicists are coming to CERN for only a few weeks to run their experiment. Therefore, you can imagine that their time at CERN is precious for them. So it's our duty to ease their life at CERN when they are here. And although CERN is not, it's also a large and complex environment. So in this context, the optimization of the service delivery is quite a challenge. And maybe, Gyorgy, you want to present more in detail how we are organized in terms of service management.
Yeah, CERN is not only the operator of the largest machine on the world, the 27 kilometers circumference particle accelerator, the Large Hadron Collider, but we really are a small city laying across the border between France and Switzerland near Geneva, providing the base for researchers from all across the world, as Frederic just mentioned. This means that we have hundreds of services to operate, from our on-site hotel providing accommodation, temporary accommodation, our own emergency services, of course, the usual IT services, HR services, and all what you need for a site of 10,000 people to run day to day, just to clean the site, to cut the grass. All these contribute to the variety of services within CERN.
Interesting. So it is basically experience for the visitors and employees at CERN facilities. Is that correct?
It is really to run the site, because we have CERN's main mission is not so much the research itself, but to put in place the infrastructure for the researchers to be able to conduct their research. This is the main mission of CERN, and this is what all the CERN site serves together with all the IT, general site, and other additional services.
Okay. Coming to this case study now, the case study we're going to discuss today obviously covers CERN's service management journey, which started a decade ago. So it is retrospectively looking at what has happened in the past 10, and what really stood out to me when reading the case study, it shows how ITIL principles were applied outside the IT department, which I found particularly of interest. Can you give us an insight how this idea came about and the contacts at the time?
So 2/3 of people who come to the CERN site are there only for a few weeks or a few months to for example, conduct research, and then they go back to their home institutes, which means that they don't have the time to learn for each service what are the contact point of each service, or they don't even know that these services exist on the site. because they are really there for a temporary time period only. And in the past, we used to have for each service their own contact points, sort of their own help desk, and the support levels largely were influenced by the quality of the relationship you had to these service providers as a requester. So when you were a new arrival, it was really not evident to know who to contact for what, and we really needed a structured service framework to manage this complexity, which emerged from a collaboration which was built between our IT department and the general services department, of which I'm also part of, so that we create a framework that puts into structure the management of all these large variety of services at CERN. So in about 2009, my predecessors and colleagues from the IT department got together and started discussing how we could implement this structure, how we could implement a more structured way to manage our services. So, of course, IT had already some experience with running the IT services in a structured way with the already centralized help desk for the IT services, while for the site services this hasn't existed yet. So they started looking at what would be the right framework. They looked at ISO 20000, ITIL, and see how they could be applied. And they saw that what we had in IT might be applicable also outside of the IT environment, especially because also my predecessors came from IT with an IT background, so they could really understand what, for example, IT was talking about and how they could translate it to their own environment. And they saw that this could actually work. And this is how it all started. They started a collaboration with the IT services and the site services on board to look at building a structured framework.
Okay. And what were the service management problems that CERN looking to solve? Were there very particular problems? Or let me rephrase this question to ITIL language. What was the vision?
Yeah, so as we just said, we had hundreds of services are available on site at CERN, from resetting a password to taking a car for a duty travel. Coordinating these services is an enormous task, and we talked about many people coming to CERN and leaving, but also the supporters of the services are changing very often due to the nature of CERN. It's partly also an educational organization where people come to learn the forefront of technology, and then they leave the organization. So contracts are very short, which means that we were really aiming at building something simple, something which is uniform across the services and is simple to learn for the supporters and is simple to apply for the clients, for the customers on site. So we were looking to include to introduce an easy to use service management platform, both for the supporters and the clients on site, the users on site, putting value to these users in the center.
Okay. Can you name some of the desired specific results or demands which were at the time thought of? You mentioned that simplifying the access to the services, but were there specific services which kind of triggered that conversation?
Yeah, so they're really simplifying the user experience was in the center of this of this journey. Frederic, maybe you can tell about it.
Typically, as Gyorgy tried to explain a bit before, the user was really placed at the center of the concept. The idea was to bring a single phone number, a single email address to the user to request any kind of services at CERN. So to say it simply, I would say, whatever you need, call the service desk. That was somehow the leitmotif for this implementation. And I would say that it took time to implement. We started 10 years ago, but now it's well known at CERN that if ever you need something, you don't know how to reach the right person to get the right service, you call the service desk. And this has greatly improved, I think, the user experience on CERN side.
Okay, so there was obviously a roadmap defined that this is what we want to do, but how did the team go about to making these changes, and how were they received in the organization?
So we, as we said, we focused on creating something simple with a single point of contact for all services, simplifying the user's life at CERN, and at the same time trying to ease the supporters' work through a collaborative and highly automated tool, introducing as much automation as we can in the service delivery process. We looked at improving the management's monitoring and control capabilities by providing them the right reporting tools and the control mechanisms, which is built inside the process to manage the service, so that the control and the service delivery is stays within the same process, and overall to demonstrably improve the efficiency and the effectiveness. So what we did is that we took ITV4 at the time and picked up those processes which we found would fulfill this very simple idea that we had really the basic processes such as the single point of contact, which we mentioned already, to establish a single service desk for all of the services, to establish a single process for managing incidents, and then another one to manage the requests. So these are the two basic processes, incident and request, we started to work with to try to apply these uniform processes across all the services in the organization, which used very different processes in the time. These were the main points we started with, and then we looked at integrating all these processes to a unified service management tool to help the supporters, but not to take over their own tools, because in every team they had already established the IT tools they have been working and the way they manage the services. What we concentrated on is really to introduce a very thin layer of service management, which only looks at how the service communicates with their users. So we really tried to get a tool which only addresses how the user contacts the service via a single point of contact, how we log these requests. We can build in some automation in, for example, collecting more details about the user's request, so that the service doesn't need to ask additionally the user for additional information, and then fulfill the request with the own means of the service. So they can retain their own tools to fulfill the service. So this was the main idea: simple processes, single point of contact, and a single tool. And a key concept was to establish a central service catalog listing all the services within the organization and linking them to their supporting units. The idea was to separate the organic units that are providing the services from what the services are, which allowed us to hide the complexity from the user, because finally what the user wants is just to get the service. He doesn't care which is the unit that delivers it. Is it one group of people or two group of people who will deliver the service? The user don't mind. So what we ended up is a two-dimensional service catalog, where on one hand we have the services that are exposed to the users, and on the other hand we are able to represent the actual organization behind these services, mapping to the organic units of the organization the different functions that are making up the different services. And this allowed us to add basically an unlimited scope for our service desk, because as soon as we launch a service request, the system can map, okay, if the user asks for this service, what will be the organic unit within the organization who will look after it? The service desk doesn't need to maintain all this knowledge in hand, but the service catalog will already give the answers, most likely who will be the one who will be able to help. And this makes us resilient to the organization, because organic units can change, but the tickets and the requests will still be assigned to the right unit, to the right plane, just by updating the service catalog at the right time.
Okay.
If I may, Gyorgy is describing something which is already in place and which is already working very well. But when I remember when we started this process 10 years ago, it was not easy to implement, actually. It was a very ambitious project, and that also needed an important cultural change at CERN. Even if collaboration at CERN is important, is essential, it's for to run our experiments. Internally, as Gyorgy said, each service was running independently, and bringing everyone together in a single way of working, in a common way of working, was not easy, because we faced a lot of resistance. Actually, at that time, I was one of the independent service provider. And to be honest with you, I felt this project like an intrusion in the way I was managing the services, although I was ITIL trained, you see. So it's not because you know the good reasons behind. Yeah. You still have to establish trust between the different services, between the different stakeholders to make this happen. And you also need, I think, at that time it was very important to have a strong support of the top management to allow this kind of project to be successful.
This is very interesting that you're saying that you felt the project as an intrusion, but now you obviously represent it and saying, well, how great it has been for the organization.
Exactly.
So how,
like any change, any people need this phase to adapt to a change and realize that you have some benefits at the end when implementing it. But as anyone, we are human, and we react as human.
Yeah. So one of the major problems then was the cultural change and bring about that change. How do you think did the team implement that successfully? Was it just a matter of getting used to, or was there specific communication from the team to the individual teams to explain? How do you think did they resolved that problem?
Support from the management was very, very important in resolving these issues of changing the culture of the organization. Actually, this was more of a bottom-up project. As I said, the service management team leaders from the two departments, the IT and the site management, teamed up together and brought this idea. At that time, there was a new management at CERN who largely supported this idea. And I think without sufficient management support, it would have been very difficult to convince the individual services to join the framework. And what was really difficult is to go to the services and discuss, to get them exposed, what are the services they are providing, and get an engagement, because once they need to put down in a catalog what are the services they provide, it also means that they need to engage themselves to provide these services in a certain way, and this was not always easy. Sometimes this even brought up cases of duplications, and it really made evident duplications within the organization, and this was quite difficult to absorb for these services that were involved, and this created, of course, quite some tension to resolve these issues. During this process, we relied also on external consultants who helped us to mediate these situations, and finally, after spending about 1 year, I think the first year of the project was really going around CERN and getting the services on board, discussing how the catalog will be built. Once they managed to build this catalog, then the rest of the project went much smoother.
So you mentioned already that the facility management team and the IT team worked together on this and initiated this together. Do you think there has been? It has shaped the relationship between the IT and the rest of the business, as this was a new way of thinking, applying IT-specific guidance to elements outside the IT department? Do you think it has changed the culture within CERN in general, in maybe more collaborative? For example, usually ITs are, seen as the separate entities in a business.
I think that with this collaboration, we really managed to transition CERN to a coherent service environment, where users have a single point of contact, regardless whether it's an IT or a site service or any other service within the organization, and having this unified process now between the IT and the non-IT services, I think it helps generally the cohesion of the whole service organization. So it decreases the divide between the IT and the non-IT services. I mentioned that services were joined to this framework in the IT department and in the site services department, but we didn't stop there. So once these services were integrated, other services like HR services or even technical services connected to the running of our accelerators, the particle accelerators, they were free to join and ask to join this framework, list them in the service catalog, benefit from the service desk, and they continued coming. So over the years, we now operate over 330 services at CERN using this framework, which really expands beyond the initial collaboration between the IT and the site services departments. And it sort of became a standard. Whenever a new service is created, now people come to us and ask, okay, so now I need to list my service in the catalog. I would like to use the tool for resolving the request and providing support. So it's really became a standard. Recently, we extended the use of this framework and the catalog to implement, for example, the data privacy notices following the issuing of the GDPR and the related rules of the organization. And we relied largely on the existing service portal and the service catalog to document how the organization is treating personal data. So I think one of the good indication of our progress is in the number of tasks that we are treating. We are now consistently over 300,000 service requests and incidents per year, and these are only those that are reported by an actual person. There are many more that are triggered by automations, by monitoring systems, for example, and this shows how the organization is maturing with the service management.
Maybe, Sidra, coming back to your question about how the project shaped relationships between IT and the rest of the organization.
Yeah.
In the industry now, it became obvious then when you have an issue, you have an incident, a request, you want to be able to, as a user, to open a ticket and to have regular feedback on your issue or how is it going on and so on. This was obviously very widely used in IT, but it was not obvious in many other services, general services like, renting of bike. For them, you want to rent. For our colleagues, renting a bike was as simple as going to the workshop and ask for a bike. So this spirit of being able to submit a request and it being fulfilled in a certain time with some kind of commitment is also one of the influence that this project brought in the rest of the CERN services. I was also, as Gyorgy explained, with the integration of the different services, colleagues realized that they could easily share information to speed up the delivery of their services. So typically, you are asked to, you are a colleague installing racks, but you need power. You need eventually IT networking.
Yeah.
And obviously, via this integration of the different services, you can accept a request from a user and very easily share this information with the other colleagues who needs to contribute to the implementation of the request, the initial request of the user. And this is also why we see today great enthusiasm in being part of the service catalog, because there is this capacity to speed up the delivery of the fulfillment of requests at the end for the user.
Yeah, I was about to ask what results can be seen for the user-employee experience for the organization. That was my next question.
I touched a little bit the question.
Yeah, and actually now that, the different parts of the CERN are coming and wanting to part of this framework speaks volumes itself, how successful it has been. And I think this is a really impressive journey, especially because this thinking and process already started a decade ago at CERN, when not many organizations were thinking about what we now call, for example, enterprise service management or the user experience for internal services. Were there any lessons learned during the journey by CERN?
Gyorgy?
Yes. There have been quite some lessons learned, actually. Quite some lessons learned during the journey. One of the first lessons is that we need to keep things simple. So introducing these simple processes was a good idea, it was easier to get them accepted and uniformized, still allowing a little bit of customization to the needs each of the services, and then focus on the value that the user can get out of all this. So we really try to maintain the simplicity and focus on the final value that we deliver to the user. So this one service portal, one point of contact, one phone number to call the service desk, and finally one process. This is what I think was a key success factor in managing to get on board so many of our services. Of course, yeah, this was a painful process, and as we said, not only on the technical side, but also on the cultural side. But we proved that finally structured service management is relevant and effective beyond IT. We found that the organization should invest in a comprehensive service catalog and a service portal. So these were having a structured way to represent what services really are in the organization. It really helped us to streamline also the operation of these services. And finally, service management is not rocket science. We found it worked for us for a wide range of services with various complexity. So it can work for anyone, I think.
Okay.
If, maybe I could add one thing out of the lessons from this project.
Yeah.
Is that when we start, we were in the ITIL-V3 framework, and somehow we were I don't know how to say, but maybe forced to think the ITIL-V3 methodology, which means that maybe at the beginning we have too much exposed concept like service catalog, like incident management, request fulfillment management. And what I see, for instance, in ITIL-V4 as a benefit is that you change the view of what the service management on the value you deliver to the client. And this is actually what our colleagues outside IT are interested in. They don't mind much about what kind of process we want to implement. They want to deliver services for their client. It's up to us as service managers in the service management area to have in mind all these ITIL concepts and to help our colleagues to put in place the right mechanism, the right processes to bring value to their customer. This is where I see a real benefit in ITIL-V4, because typically when we want to develop services outside our area, we try to motivate people also to attend ITIL trainings. It helps to communicate, to have the same vocabulary to understand the way we will design services. And ITIL-V4, what I see is that people are much more receptive to the concept because it talks to them. It talks about value to deliver to the clients. So it's also for us another improvement in the way we could spread the philosophy in the organization.
So ITIL-4 is basically, the language of ITIL-4 is more organization friendly.
I think so.
Yeah.
ITIL-V3 was really focused on IT, let's say, principles, which was very, very helpful, but not really easy to understand for non-IT people, because it was not really focused on their core. It is not focused on their core activity. But when you talk about value stream for someone, delivering value to the customer, this is meaningful for someone who is non-IT person.
Interesting. Okay.
I could give an example on it. Actually, one of our challenges was to get the differentiation between request and incident into the head of our users, because we went through with all the services on implementing these simple processes. Okay, how do you treat when there is something wrong? Okay, that will be an incident process. This is how we will do it. How do you treat the request to provide the service? And then we put in place the processes. But then the users needed to know if they are now opening a service request or they are opening an incident. And they just didn't mind. They didn't know what the difference is between the two, and they didn't just care, because what they wanted is either get their problem fixed or get the service delivered. So what they need is just to be able to get in touch with this service without needing to know what is the process behind, because that's not the value for them. The value is for them is getting a light fixed in their office, or getting their new PC delivered.
Interesting. So what is the vision for the future at CERN? Because obviously this is looking back at the past 10 years. How is the outlook for the future from your perspective? What is still to be done, or has the vision changed, and how does ITIL4 fit into it?
So we continue to expand actually the usage of the service management framework. We talked about over 300 services that are under this framework already today, but there are more in the organization. We have, for example, those technical services that are related to running particle accelerators, which are really, for example, providing software for very specific devices, control devices of accelerators. That's, for example, an internal technical service used by their own technical clients within the organization. So we started off with the site services, IT services, all what generally people need at CERN, and now we are focusing on extending this framework to the more specific, more technical internal services within the organization, especially aiming at these very technical services and technical areas related to really the operation of the technical infrastructures of CERN, such as accelerators. Frederic himself works in one of these teams, and he is an excellent ambassador of the general service management team, because he is implementing within his service organization the processes, and helps to improve the maturity of the services. So this is our second goal, is to improve maturity. So we started off with very simple processes, and there's still a lot to go. So we would like services to really take on board a continuous service improvement mindset, to monitor with more advanced tools the performance of their services, and act when they see that something can be done better, and implement additional processes when it is suitable for them. For example, to manage long-standing problems. In some services this is relevant, in some others is less, but altogether having the right processes for each in a structured and unified way might help to increase the efficiency and the overall service performance. And as Frederic just said before, ITIL4 we really find it's more adapted to our organization because of this focus on the value and embracing also other processes we already have. For example, Lean, which is now integral part of also the ITF framework. So we found it very easy when we started learning about ITV4 to translate it, how it applies to our organization, because this is what we have been already doing for the past years.
Great. Thank you very much for this very interesting conversation. I think it is really very, very interesting and very unique work which has happened in CERN over the past 10 years, which I was not aware of. And I would like to thank you for your time this afternoon, and hopefully we will hear more in future, maybe in 10 years' time, of all the great work which the service management team has done there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We look forward to it.